So this brings us to our second story, the story of Canada to date and the values that have evolved. And again, this story is closely tied to energy. What is Canada? Who are we? What are our values? Well, Mackenzie King, Prime Minister, said Canada is a country with too much geography and not enough history. The Economist magazine said that Canadians are like Americans, just with healthcare and no guns. There have been several contests around the world for things like who is the best Briton, who is the best Frenchman, who's the best Canadian. In Britain, they chose Winston Churchill because he saved the country. In France, they chose Charles de Gaulle as the best Frenchman because he saved their country. In Canada, we chose Tommy Douglas because he gave us health care. The British author Douglas Adams likens nations instead to individuals. And so he thinks that Canada is like a, quote, 35-year-old intelligent woman. He thinks that America is more like a, quote, adolescent schoolboy. And he calls Australia Jack Nicholson. So joking aside, when you actually look deeper than our love of healthcare, there's a value behind that which is about caring. It's about thinking that all Canadians deserve some basic level of healthcare. They deserve not to be sick, and they also deserve not to go broke if they are sick. So we have that as a fundamental building block of our society. A fundamental value is caring. We also are extremely tolerant, and this in many ways is a legacy of immigration. We are one of the most diverse societies on the planet. A poll by the Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation found that Canadians are the most tolerant society in the developed world. So tolerance is another one of our key values. And when you go back to the Mackenzie King quote, that the country is not enough history and too much geography, these wide open spaces have also defined us. Not just in the sense that wilderness is a part of Canadians, which it is, but in another way, we are a sun nation. Canada is massive. It's 10 million square kilometers. 6.7% of the world's landmass is Canada. And all of that solar energy is hitting this country every day. And our economy, if you look at it, has been based on this solar input. A lot of us don't realize that most of our energy comes from the sun. So it's obvious with solar panels, but even wind turbines are actually powered by the sun because of differential heating in the planet. Hydro dams are powered by the sun because of the water cycle. So our sun is actually feeding most of the energy that we consume on the planet. The exceptions, of course, are things like nuclear and geothermal and tidal. Forests, plants, they are also catching the sun for us and turning them into a form of energy. So when you look at the history of Canada, our economy, our founding economy, has really been based on the sun. First Nations were essentially harvesting the sun in the form of animals and plants. That continued with the Hudson's Bay Company and fur and trapping. The Maritimes, when settlers got there, they were fishing. Fish get their energy again from plankton in the food chain. We were cutting down trees in the Maritimes, again, big solar collectors. And then farming, of course, basically farms are giant solar collectors. And so Europeans were all crowded out, not having enough space anymore, so they came to Canada, a place with too much geography. And they set up farms across from Ontario and Quebec, across the prairies. They were ranching, turning the ranch lands, the grass energy into, meat in Alberta. And also later on, we started to harvest the energy in the rivers by building massive dams in Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, and here in BC. So there are exceptions to this. Obviously, mining is not sort of a sun nation kind of thing. We're digging up minerals. And also manufacturing came a little later and began to shape, the economies of especially Eastern Canada. But in large part, this fact that we are a sun nation, we have been a sun nation, has also shaped our values. A sun nation is by definition a place where there's not huge surpluses. You're not dealing with a massive surplus of energy, and so your economy is actually in a bit of a steady state, and you have to be fair if you're going to turn that into stable society and good politics. So there's a direct correlation here between a solar-powered economy, which doesn't have huge surpluses, and the fact that taxpayers are then likely to be quite frugal with giving their money to government and want value in return. The Americans have in their constitution, that they are all about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in Canada, our constitution is about peace, order, and good government. So we like good government. We like value for our money. The fact that we have the solar economy in history also means that there's been a distributed wealth across the country. So this has been a big part of who we are as well. So fairness is another value for our Canadians. That it's a bit annoying that we keep on having this conversation in Confederation about who's getting more and who's getting less. But at least we're having this conversation about that, about balancing our Confederation across the country. Internationally, Canada has sort of come of age in the last 100 years. We're a bit new to the table internationally. We really, did come of age during World War I, during Vimy Ridge, when we actually fielded an army that could fight and to win by ourselves. We've never really lost that sense of being a bit new and humble as we do our international relations. In 1956, Lester Pearson won the Nobel Peace Prize on the Suez Crisis. And so Canada has this reputation of being an honest broker amongst countries and of doing the right thing. So these are sort of our values as Canadians based on our history to date, which has been, really based on energy again. We are caring, we are tolerant, we are fair, and we have humility. So that's sort of who we are going, forwards. It's a little bit like, if you go back to the Douglas Adams quote, like an intelligent 35-year-old woman. Those really are the values you would associate with that.